What you're about to experience are my opinions and truths. I'm suggesting they're possibilities for you to consider, in which you can then come up with your own logical conclusions.
This is what it is, okay? I said empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Good day or evening to everyone out there in the decoding world. My name is Logan, and this is Decode Your Reality, and today we're going to be breaking down and decoding the famous martial artist named Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee Decoded, folks, and I have a jam-packed, very informative presentation to deliver to you right here, right now. And in the beginning of this presentation, you heard a little interview by Bruce Lee, one of his great pieces of philosophy, and he ends that conversation by saying, "Be water, my friend. Be water, my friend." And of course that standout, be what? Be water. Be water. And it's an 18 tied to the Christ. There's so many layers to this, folks, of what this really means. And I'm going to be showing you in the English a little bit later on during this presentation, but notice it's the master number 55. And of course, you've been paying attention to this great research that's tied to this iron element right here. Iron is 26. The word God is 26. Be water, my friend. But, the big standout, folks, if you really can see the layers, and again, these elements, what elements have to do with numerology? Folks, they're bridges. It gives us a more refined aspect of the story. So this element, cesium, the 55th element, which is right here, and if for those of you that watched the show Dark on Netflix, the way that time travel was possible was using this element, cesium, which they put into the time machine in order for it to work. And of course, with good reason, because this element is known to be used in atomic clocks. That's when it says it's one of the most important uses is in the cesium clock, atomic clock. We're talking about time. Time, Father Time. And, the big standout is that these clocks are a vital part of the mobile phone network, the GPS, the Global Positioning Satellite. They give the standard measured of time, the electron resonance frequency of the cesium atom is this number right there. And when you plug that in to do the numerology, this is what you're going to come up with. 45, which, if you've been paying attention, folks, it's tied to the rosy cross called rhodium, which is tied to the box that we all live in, which I've been showing now through many other layers that I've been coming out with, especially the one called Great Architect of the Universe, breaking it down with all the math, the geometrical shapes, sacred geometry. It all comes down to the box that we're all stuck in. Rhodium is that box, number 45. And this element, cesium, is tied to that. And we got that from Bruce Lee's famous statement, "Be water, my friend," because water can become anything. Which is why I keep saying, this is, to me, the way I see this is, it's why I keep saying man is being used To what degree, I don't know. But of course, the code that I'm showing is undeniable at this point. And what he's saying clearly is that something's coming down. We're made up of over 70% water. And that water can become a teapot. That water can become a cup. And it fills the lives and overtakes our lives. And that's what I feel. We're in time. We're in the box. And we're being used to a major degree. That's how I would read this. And I have more to go on this one, folks. That's just for starters. So let's get into the topics to get into the nitty-gritty of this presentation. In the zero position, of course, the intro, which is what I'm doing now, I'm going to be starting off with a little bit of astrology. We're going to look at his natal chart really quickly. After that, we're going to get into his name, his real birth name, Lee Junfan. Number 2, we're going to get into his birth to death, showing folks clearly this guy was not his own. He was being used, controlled. However you want to write it out, however you want to slice and dice it, I'm going to show you to support that from his birth to death. Number 3, golden martial arts. Of course, Bruce Lee was known for that. Number 4, the famous movie, Enter the Dragon. Number 5, the producer of Enter the Dragon, Robert Klaus. And then, of course, I always love to hear what you saw during this presentation. So let's get into some previews here before I start this presentation, get into the natal chart. I want to let all of you know that this is an upcoming decode that I'm working on as well. It's Azazel. And of course, Azazel was really brought to the screen through X-Men First Class, the movie X-Men First Class. And this guy was a teleporter, teleportation, eluding things. And if you know your history, if you know your esoteric, you know what Azazel's all about. The story behind that. This guy's a killer. He's a killer. And I got this one coming soon. And the reason why I'm showing this, other than I do have it coming soon, is that you see Brandon Lee, who was Bruce Lee's son, his only son, played in a movie called Crow. He was the main star of this movie called Crow. And let me back up. You remember, X, as in the X-Men, what is the letter X? It's the 24th letter in the alphabet. X is X-Men. Talking about our chromosomes. So, of course, naturally, I decoded the word Azazel, and look at what I come up with. The number 24. The 24 is tied to the Crow card in the medicine deck. There are 52 cards in this deck, and the Crow card is the card number 24. How about that? Brandon Lee, who is Bruce Lee's only son, plays in a movie called The Crow. He's the star of the movie. It's tied to Azazel. Now, I know that has nothing to do with Brandon Lee, but see, when we go to the next slide, this is where it all ties in. And this is, again, where I continually will keep saying, folks, that man is being used. There is no possible way that man is orchestrating these layers to come out this way. The conspiracy would be way too big for all these people that I've been decoding. I have over 125 videos now. Every single layer in those videos, all those people, all those dates that I'm showing tied to the layers of the periodic table and the cards, they would all have to be in bed together. They would all have to be in cahoots. Folks, there's no way that man could be ever orchestrating this. This reality that we're all observing is completely fixed and rigged. It's run by energies outside of our reality. This is no exception. This guy right here, Brandon Bruce Lee, born on February 1st, 1965. The card of illumination that's tied to the February 1st card. Let me go to that just so we can be very transparent. Here is the boilerplate chart for the cards. The 12 months run horizontally, and then the 31 days run vertically. February 1st is right there. It's the Jack. Let me zoom in. There's Brandon Lee's birthday. February 1st, it's the Jack Spades card. The Jack Spades card. which is right here. Now in the deck, folks, it's the 50th card. Here is the lineages of the cards, and we go down to the Jack Spades. There is Brandon Lee's birth card. It's the 50th card in the deck. So when we bring in the elements called numerology, notice that the word chromosomes, which is tied to the X chromosomes, which is tied to the X-Men, which is why I ended up decoding this Azazel character, and why the Crow is involved in that, because Azazel's 24, Crow is 24, is you see Brandon Lee having the 50th card for his birthday is tied to this word in numerology called chromosomes, our chromosomes. And then we go right over to this layer right there, and it's the Crow, which is the movie the guy was freaking in. He was the star of this movie, The Crow. And he's got a card tied to the word chromosomes. Chromium has multiple weights, so let me digress and show you that. Here's chromium right here. And when you go down to the oxidation states and isotopes, you're going to see that one of the isotopes is the number 50. The number 50. Which ties to his card, which ties to the word chromosomes, which ties to the element chromium, which ties to the Crow card, because chromium is the 24th element on the periodic table, tied to the 24th. So folks, you see how all these layers, when you connect them together, it's like putting a puzzle together. But clearly, do you think that Bruce Lee sat down with his wife before Brandon popped out of the womb and decided to call him his name, decided to relate it to this? Folks, there's no way, because Crow came out a long time after the guy was born in 1965. Folks, I'm struggling to try to get out my words here, because this stuff is staring us in the face. It's all connected. And this is the code in our reality, and it would be absolutely irresponsible for me to say that man is orchestrating this. Absolutely not possible. It would be absolutely irresponsible of me to say that man is orchestrating these pieces. No possible way. So there's the start of the presentation, bringing his son into it in the upcoming decode I have on Azazel Decoded. And of course, it's going to be tied to the Crow. The Crow's going to be in there. So let's get into Bruce Lee's natal chart, shall we, folks, to show you that his life was not his own, and it was completely scripted and rigged. Here's his natal chart. I could spend hours decoding this natal chart. He has a lot of opposition. These red lines mean debilitation, a lot of opposition. But with the big standouts, folks, that I see with this, of course, is ascending. He was a Sagittarius ascending. That's the 9th sign tied to the Hermit card, the wise sage, which is why he was full of philosophy. His sun is in Sagittarius, the 9th sign, very wise. And the big standouts, of course, he's got a stellium. Stellium means 3 or more planets in one house. In the 11th house, the house of magic, this is where all the electricity of the chart gets coming into play right here. And then the opposite of this right here, all this grand energy from Mercury, Mars, the moon, and Venus, all these 4 are shifting all the way across down to house number 5. This is the teeter-totter right here. And it comes down, and look at what he has in his house of manifestation. House number 5, your house number 5 is where you manifest everything. On the world stage, house number 5 is where government, politics, religion, movies, sports, all those layers are in house number 5. The 5th chakra is the throat chakra. It's where we do all of our manifestations. That's why all manifestations are inside house number 5. And notice that he has Saturn and the sun Jupiter. You have Father Sun in his house of manifestations. And not only does he have the Father Sun inside his house of manifestations, but look at the degrees. Let's go over to the legend. Here they are right there. Look at the degrees that they're at, folks, in the sky when this guy popped out of the womb on November 27th. Jupiter's at 7 degrees. Saturn is at 9 degrees. And if you take 7 and 9 and you bring them together, you're going to land on this element right here called gold. This guy, Bruce Lee, has gold inside his house of manifestations. Father and son, Saturn and Jupiter, inside his house of manifestations. And of course, the other big standout that I saw was this layer right there. Pluto and his wound called Chiron in the 8th house. In the 8th house. And this is really a big deal because Michael Jackson had this placement in there. And notice that the bullet points that were a big standout for me is encounter with death early in life. Encounter with death early in life. Fascinated with death and your own potential destructiveness. The guy was all about pushing the limits, doing his own stunts, fighting. But this one right here, encounter with death early in life. Folks, do you think that Bruce Lee died at an early age? Abso-freaking-lutely he did. He died at an early age, folks. And this placement right there may have sung the story for him and part of his code. And of course, Pluto's the planet of death and regeneration. And even though it's in a very contentful house number 8, that planet right there can bring a lot of upheavals tied together with the Chiron energy. I think it's very fitting. And this is why, folks, anybody that tells you that astrology is nonsense and it's demonic doesn't know what they're talking about. And of course, those are my opinions, but it's the very reason why the church wants to shun astrology, because they know that this is where the cosmic blueprint lies in our lives. So there it is, the starting point of his natal chart. Now let's get into his name, folks. Let's get into Bruce Lee's name. His birth name is right here. Lee Jun Fan. That was his real birth name on his birth certificate that I could find. And look at what the outcomes are, folks, on the 2 big ciphers in numerology. The English using A through Z, 1 through 26, and the Chaldean using the numbers 1 through 8, using phonetics. It's the 88 and 39, and folks, there are the 2 elements on the periodic table that encompass those numbers 39 and 88. Remember Trump's last name equals 88. And of course, time travel in the Back to the Future, 88. I've been showing how important, especially if you haven't seen my Decode on Yaldabaoth Decoded, you should clearly check that out, because in that video, I showed that we're being used for our energetic gold, and we're being recycled back in to this game of life. Now, that is a very good possibility, and it's, of course, a theory. I can't prove it. But when you start to really come and start observe these layers, it doesn't seem so far-fetched. And this guy, 39, total numerology, which of course is tied to the element argon. And of course, he said, be like water. Water is 18. Bruce is 18. There is the tie-in right there, folks. 1/2 of the arc, because potassium is K, and that's the moon and the sun, the arc. And tied to yttrium in the 88. What's so important about the 39 is the square root of that number, and why it's so massive in our reality, folks. Why you keep seeing it, why it's tied to the Christ, why it's tied to the flux capacitor in Back to the Future, why it's tied to time travel. You see, folks, it's all layered in numberempire.com, but a big layer of decoding that I've been using quite a bit, and I'm hoping that some of you catch on, is in the square roots. What is the square root? Well, what's the square root of 39? It's this number multiplied by itself. It'll give you 39. So it's basically giving you the mathematical equations of the number inside the cube. This is Saturn's magic square. This is on the dial pad of your phone. It's on any calculator that you own in your home, and you use it constantly. You use it constantly. And it's inside this three-dimensional space called the game of life. The square root of the number 39, here it is when you add up all the digits, 6.244 ... It equals the number 91. And now perhaps you're seeing the layers as to why the 39 is so massive, why it's so strong, why it's so big. Because this word right there is a direct match. And I've been continually showing and supporting what I've been showing, that we live in the constructs of a battery. This is a battery. It's derived from the positive and negative, and that's derived from our love and fear. That's inside this dualistic box that we all live in called the game of life. And Bruce Lee, of course, is tied to that number 39 through his birth name, which is right there. And then, of course, the 39 is linked to that number 88. What's the shape of a snake's tongue? The letter Y. That's what it comes out of its mouth. There are some significant pieces to that construct of the snake and this letter Y. When we go into the string of pi, the 39 occupies two spaces, digit number 43 and digit number 44, which of course makes up the number 87. And you can decode that and get some massive syncs. But of course, the standout and what goes along with this presentation is this right here called the gold current. The number 39 is tied to gold current, which I've been showing over and over, the energetic gold that we all give off, that we're all being used for. This guy's no exception, folks. No exception. Here's Bruce Lee, or Lee Jun Fan. Here's his alchemology. And if you're new to this, what's alchemology? It's taking numerology, getting the single digits, and then bringing the elements of the periodic table to match up with those single digits. So for example, Lee is a 355. That would be these three elements, lithium, boron twice, 355, and so on. So here is his 9 letters that make up his name. Going over to the trusty calculator and adding up all these atomic weights at the bottom here that can be measured in a laboratory. These are real tangible things, by the way, folks. I'm not making this stuff up. If you're a science buff and you study the elements of the periodic table, clearly you know these exist. These are in nature. When you go and add up these elements of the periodic table that make up his name through numerology and alchemology, this is the number you're going to get, 81.063. Now, this is not a one-hit wonder on the alchemology. I've been showing it through many, many different people. Keanu Reeves, why he was called Neo, because his name ends up linking up to neodymium. But clearly, folks, when you take number 81 and you add it to the number 63, get out your calculators. This is the number that you're going to get. 144. Now, if you know your theology, that story behind theology, you know how important that number is. You just got to add 3 more zeros onto it. Those are called the chosen ones. Now, could it be, folks, that these people in their layers in life, where they were chosen to be placed, are they just, being used for their gold on a different level? Is that what we're seeing here, folks? When you look at the number 144 and you bring it into the string of pi, the never-ending digits of pi, I said this is inside the cube. Pi is inside the cube. It makes up the sine and cosine waves that we continually keep putting out through our expressions of our emotions. Well, 144 digits into the string of pi, look at what the total amount of these digits add up to. 666. The number of the beast. So we're told. That's what the story says. But clearly you can see the chosen one number is directly tied to the number of the beast. Completely antagonistic numbers when it comes to the stories. So you can see how the holes get punched into the stories and they become obsolete. And you have to start using your own logic and discernment. Here are Bruce Lee's birth card and his death card. And I've been showing how accurate these cards are. Why am I showing the cards if you're new to this? Because the cards of Illumination, which are a typical poker deck, there are 52 cards in the deck, including the jokers, and that match is a direct link to the 52 weeks in a year. There are 13 cards per suit, matching the 13 weeks that make up each season, because there are 4 suits. And there are spring, summer, fall, and winter, 4 seasons. These cards are highly accurate. And I continually show that people's birthdays, the date stamps, the time stamps, they keep expressing themselves, and there would be no way that man could ever orchestrate their own cards to match up with the things I've been showing. And this is no exception. Here is Bruce Lee's birth card. November 27th is the 6 Hearts card. Let me show you that. Here's November right here, just so we can be very, very transparent. Go down to the number 20. Maybe your birthday's on the 27th. Right there, the 27th, row 27, all the way over November, it's the 6 Hearts card. And his death card, he died on July 20th. So we go over here, we go up to July, here's July, and then we go down to number 20. And there's number 20 right there. Go all the way over, and there it is. The 8 clubs card inside the row July. So here are his 2 cards from birth to death, and it's the number 68. Now it's tied to this element right here called erbium. And if you've watched my decode that I just put out on Elvis, it was in there, tied to Yaldabaoth. Now, this element has many weights, or atomic weights. 166 is one of them, which, of course, is tied to this word right here that was made famous by the Greeks in the New Testament called the tetragrammaton. Tetra meaning 4, meaning the box that we live in. And perhaps what's ruling over the box? Who's orchestrating the box? And of course, folks, you've been paying attention, you know what that number and how big that number is and what it leads to. But clearly you can see 68 is erbium. It's the 166 tied to this energy right there called the tetragrammaton. And we're going to keep showing that during this presentation. Here's another layer. I told you I'd be showing you another one from his most famous statement, be water, my friend. It was a 55 in the Chaldean. In the English, it's a 168, which is tied to erbium. Now, just so you know, because I want to be very transparent, folks, erbium is right here, and you find the weights through this oxidation states and isotopes. These are the common ones. These elements have more than this, but there's the number 166 tied to the tetragrammaton. There is 168, the isotope. They just round these numbers up. But there it is, folks, and this is what he was most famous for saying. And it's a 168. And his 2 birth cards are a 68. Folks, do you think this is just pure coincidence? And I'm really trying to fit a square peg in a round hole? And I'm really trying to stretch things? Do you think it's possible that Bruce Lee wasn't even real? Could it be possible that Bruce Lee was never here on this planet and everything about his life was absolutely nonfiction or fiction? Could that be possible? I mean, clearly there's a movie called Enter the Dragon amongst other ones, and he's in that movie. So is his history just all BS? Some of you think that history is all BS. Well, clearly, if you don't believe in Bruce Lee and his life, well then, okay, great. Then you would think that history is all BS. But folks, clearly you can see Bruce Lee was a real guy. He really had a life on set. And these are really his timestamps. And this is what he's connected to. And this is what I feel is running the guy's life, or was running his life. Be water, my friend. And, when you add up the cards, you see this is his birth card, the 6 hearts. That's the 6th card in the deck. And then his death card, July 20th, is the 8 clubs. It's the 21st card. Let me be very transparent and show you. Here is the hearts, the first suit. There it is, card number 6. And then his death was on July 20th, which is the 8 clubs card. 21 and 6, card 21 and card 6. When you add those up, folks, you're going to get this number right here. It's called current 27. And, let's not forget that, this right here is also the number 27. Zeus, Jupiter, the biggest planet. Is that what's mining our gold? I mean, if you haven't seen the movie Jupiter Ascending, is there some truths in that? Folks, we can't rule out these movies and just follow a book that someone picked up and showed you when you were a kid and said, oh, this is the truth. Everything else is all nonsense. Folks, there are truths in movies. Because the movie, what's running this reality that's making the movies made the books. Seems that it's made everything. And our lives are not our own. And we're being used for our gold currency. This is no exception with this guy. You know how much currency this guy ended up giving off during his lifetime? Through all his achievements? The most talked about martial artist ever to grace the screen. Everybody knows this guy's name. His energy is still being used. Still being collected. Here's his name of what he went by professionally in the English. Bruce Lee is a 71. And that's really interesting because 71 is the 20th prime number. And this word, this word right here is a direct match to that because the duality that we live in is the number 20. 20 is tied to the 71. When you do his Chaldean, you're going to get the number 31. 31 is tied to pi, 3.14. And if you know, you've been decoding his last name, Lee, 13, that's tied to the number 79, which is gold. If you want to go extra layers that I'm not showing. But if you've been doing this great research, you know what that number 13 is. It's the death card, but it's the gold death card because the 13 is tied to the number 79 in the string of pi. How about the square cipher? I've been showing how accurate this is. And clearly, folks, this is not a one-hit wonder on using this cipher as well. This is, of course, advanced because the majority of decoders out there use the ridiculous base ciphers. That's all they use. And they don't use any of the other ones. And they connect words to numbers, which any 3-year-old can do. It's pretty easy to do that. But when you get into the more advanced layers, which I'm hoping some of you get into, because this square cipher, if you haven't seen my video on the cube decoded, we live in the cube. So of course the square cipher is going to be important to read from. And this is no exception. Bruce Lee, what he went by professionally, inside the box, is a 997. And it's what? It's a prime number. It's not just any prime number, folks. It's the 168th prime number. Which, let me zoom in, it's the element erbium. It's the element erbium. And I'm gonna keep showing that. That's tied to the tetragrammaton directly, not indirectly, not close, not trying to fudge it, not using anything Mickey Mousing. It's directly connected to it. So let's look at his birth to death. I showed the cards tied to the 68, tied to currency. Here's another look at it. Here's his bio. November 22nd, 1940. Passed on July 20th at the young age of 32. at the young age of 32. And of course, there is that erbium, folks, 68. It's clear as day. And again, I'm not trying to stretch anything. These are legitimate layers in our reality. This has nothing to try to pull the woolly over your eyes. I'm not trying to pull any magical things in front of you. These are clear renditions of the cards of illumination tied to the element erbium, which is tied to his name in the square cipher that he went by professionally. So as you can see, folks, these layers are direct and these layers are done on purpose. And this is the code that Bruce Lee was given before he ever even came here to this planet. And there's another look, folks. Erbium has several weights. 166 is one of them, tied to his birth to death cards, folks. Do you think that's folks, do you think he planned his death to come out on the 8 clubs card because he realized, hey, I have the 6 of hearts? Think about this analogy I'm going to give you. You're born with a 6 hearts card. And you consciously know, like I know my birth cards are the 8 spades and king clubs. I know that's my birth cards. But then you're talking about picking your death date to get the outcome of the 8 clubs. So it's the 68. So it matches to this element, which is a direct match of the tetragrammaton. Do you know how insane I sound for making these assumptions? Folks, our lives are not our own. Does that mean you just throw your hands up and say, oh, the hell with it? What's the point in life? No, folks, you go out there and find your freaking code, man. Find out what you're good at. Find out what your true powers are. Most people are not living out their true destiny. They're just piddling around with things in life. They're not living out their true destiny. They waste their avatar. This guy right here, would you say he was living out his true destiny? Freaking absolutely he was. Absolutely he was. I mean, look at this, folks. Right here. Here's the autopsy on his death on July 20th. This is what they said. This is, again, folks, do you think the people that did the autopsies, they're in on it as well? On this big conspiracy that man's doing this? His death was ruled a death by misadventure, in quotations. Do you think the doctors sat down with numerology and said, we got to call it this because, you see, death by misadventure is going to equal the number 68. And since Bruce Lee had a birth card of the 6 hearts and he died today on July 20th and it's the 8 and the 68, we got to make the words of how he died, the official ruling, we have to make it match the number 68. Folks, do you realize how insane I sound by saying that? It's kind of funny. But yet there are people that will not accept this, what I'm showing you. And these are theories. Of course they're theories. Yeah. But folks, I've got over 125 videos now. I'm going to keep making them. I'm going to keep making them and showing that this reality is completely rigged and scripted. And we're just playing out our parts. Just like Bruce Lee did. Here's his timestamp just using the days on the calendar, excluding the year 1940 and 1973. He was born in 1940 and he passed in 1973. But just using the days on the calendar, born on November 27th, passed on July 20th, it's a span of 130 days. But more importantly, look how many months and days it is, folks. 47. 47. And you want to tell me that man's coding this, folks? With these layers I'm showing you here? You got to be out of your mind. If you think, this guy died on the day because he died on that day and he had to be in cahoots with the doctors and say, you got to call it a death by misadventure because it equals the number 68, which is tied to the element erbium, which is tied to the tetragrammaton, which is tied to my 2 cards of my birth to death. You know how crazy that sounds, folks? Yet some people think that our reality is controlled by man. I don't. Here's the hospital. Here's the hospital. The name of the hospital that Bruce Lee was born in. Notice the subtleties. 27 letters. That's called currency. The word current, the word currency, Jupiter, linked to that. It's a 101. And folks, you see, it's tied to the 26 because 101 is the 26th prime number. And you know, what is 26? It's the God. It's right there, folks. The God. From his birth to death. He was born in San Francisco. He passed in Hong Kong. That's gold. That's gold, folks. Now, if you don't like to use San Francisco and you want to use California, great. We're going to get the number 69, which is the yin yang. So then we get into the golden martial arts, folks, because, you know, this is what this guy was made famous for. He was living out his true purpose, his true destiny. This is what he brought to the world stage. Jeet Kune Do. It's what he made famous. Look at the outcome of what it is, folks. It's that number 44 again, once again tied to the words gold current. This form of martial arts, what I found on Wikipedia is this in parentheses. It's the way of the intercepting fist in Cantonese. Of course, I decoded that, and you're going to get the number 33. Not only are you going to get the number 33, but you're going to get the number 113, which of course is tied to the number 30, which is tied to the rabbit card going down the hole. Everything's down inside the hole, called the game of life. He founded the system. This is just like, come on. The guy founded his martial arts, system. He founded his system on July 9th, 1967. Remember, 67 is holmium. Holmium is the most magnetic element on the periodic table. Ho, 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 holmium. So you think that maybe Bruce Lee sat down and said, you know, I'm going to deliver this to the world on July 9th because I know it's gold and it has to match up to gold. Do you think maybe he was in on the big conspiracy? And of course, you know, tied to his birth to death and where he died, where he was born. I mean, you think he was in on that? I got to be in Hong Kong because Hong Kong and San Francisco is going to be 79. I was born in San Fran. I'm going to die in Hong Kong because it's going to be gold. And I got to die on a numerology with gold because it's all about the gold current. And then my martial art platform, gold current. Let's get into the movie Enter the Dragon. Enter the Dragon. The greatest martial arts movie to ever grace the screen. The numbers on this, just so you know, right here it is. I mean, it grossed so much money. It's earned over 400 times its budget. It's one of the most profitable films of all time, as being the most profitable martial arts film. So again, folks, it's in the number one categories. And there it is. Enter the Dragon is the number 57. It was released on August 19th. 19 is battery. Here's the August 19th card. It's the 7 clubs card, which is rather interesting because this is card number 20 and Bruce Lee died on the 20th of July. The 7 clubs in the tarot is called the 7 of Wands. 7 of clubs is the 7 of wands. The 7 of wands is the 28th card. Let me show you that. And if you want these graphics, just send me an email and I'll send them to you. My email is decodeyourreality@gmail.com. There is card number 28. It's the 7 of wands. The wands means clubs. So this movie comes out on a card, the 7 of clubs, which is the 7 of wands, which is the 28th card. And the 28th element to match up with the 7 of wands is an element called nickel. And what it means is devil's copper. Notice the atomic weight of nickel is 57, which is rather interesting because it's a direct match of the movie title, Enter the Dragon. What do you think the dragon is, folks? Now, obviously, with the layers to the movie, it has its own meanings, but esoterically, what does the dragon mean? It means the devil. And what's the devil? It's the sine wave that we all make up through our expressions and emotions. Fear and love. Stuck inside there. Very fitting with all these syncs. And again, folks, do you think man could ever sit there and conjure up all these layers and code it so all these layers are showing up like this? Could that even be a possibility, folks? I'll leave that up to you to answer. Here's the film company that distributed Enter the Dragon. It's called Golden Harvest. Just the name alone, folks. Look at what the name says. Golden. What's golden? It's gold. What does the word harvest? What does that mean? What does the word harvest mean, folks? When you take gold and you bring it together with harvest, in the fall, harvest time, the farmers go out there and they start to chop down everything that's been growing. So esoterically, what is this saying, folks? Golden harvest. Notice the logo. It's a cube. How about that? Could have been anything else, but it's a cube. Because it's representing the cube that we're stuck down in here. And these people were being used that were behind Golden Harvest. They didn't come up with this idea. They were given the idea. And of course, the numerology, very, very fitting. It's the number 53. Golden, look at folks. Golden is 27. Gold currency, 27. And then harvest is the 26. What's 26? It's the God. And a total of 53, which is this element right here, one half of the I am, that I am. There's the 26 right there, just has the one before, a higher form of the 26. And you think man's doing this, folks? You think man's creating all these layers and sitting down and doing all the coding? This movie came out once upon a time in Hollywood. Quentin Tarantino's movie with Brad Pitt and company. And this guy right here, his name is Mike Moe. I hope I pronounced that right. Guess what his birth card is, folks? It's the 7 clubs card. Guy was born on the 19th. And it's a card that is a direct match of the release date of Enter the Dragon. August 19th, 7 clubs card. Mike Moe, who played Bruce Lee in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 7 clubs card for his birthday. How about that? But man's doing this though. Yep. Man is totally constructing everything to have all these layers express themselves. So here's my last topic before I ask you what you saw, and it's just a couple slides. Robert Klaus, the actual director/producer of the movie Enter the Dragon. Here's a photograph of him and Bruce Lee together. Notice, here's Bruce Lee's birth card again, November 27th, 6 hearts card. And here's Robert Klaus's birth card, the 4 spades card. When you take 6 and 4 and you move them together, what number do you get? 64. How many possible codons do we have in our DNA? 64. How many squares are there in a chessboard? 64. And in the story of theology, which I've been showing over and over, how many fish did the apostles catch in Luke chapter 21, verses 11, when Jesus told them to throw the nets on the right side of the boat? 153. So theology is tied into this, which means, folks, the entire world that we live in, the entire world that we see through our senses, is completely fixed and rigged. It's a construct, it's software, it's coded, and these are the codes that you're seeing. Here's my last slide with Robert. Here he is. He was born on March 6th. Again, March 6th is the 4 spades card. But the important thing I wanted to show here, besides him creating the 64, Bruce Lee, look at what age he died at, folks. 68. 68 years old. Tied to the element. Once again, this was kind of the highlight of the entire presentation. Erbium. 166, tied to the Tetragrammaton. And it's also tied to the Gnostic demiurge, Yaldabaoth. They go hand in hand. So folks, what is it that you saw during this presentation? I'd love to hear what you observed during this presentation. I'm not here, folks, clearly I'm not here to piss anybody off. I'm not trying to get in under anybody's skin. I'm very stern in my research because so far I haven't found anybody to prove my methodology and what I've discovered wrong. And I'm not trying to challenge anybody. I mean, I've said, yeah, prove me wrong. I've said it before. But folks, I have over 125 videos and counting showing the same patterns. And yet the only thing people can come up with is they give me some opinion with absolutely no support. See, I hate, to be honest with you, I dislike very much using texting, typing on the keyboard, replying that way. It's the worst way to communicate with people. And it takes up freaking way too much time. That's why I make videos. It's really challenging to get your point across using a keyboard. Typing on that keyboard is really challenging to get your point across. Which is why I encourage all of you, make some videos. If you have a difference of opinion, if you have a different way of observing things, or you want to try to disprove my methodology, make some videos. What are you waiting for? Because you see, the world right now is itching to know how this reality works. It's dying to know. Because we know that we've been lied to, folks. We know that the things that we've been told, there's a lot of falsehoods in those layers of what we've been told. So it's important for us to figure out exactly how things work. And so far, through all the layers and all the countless hours of research that I've put into this great work, what I've come up with is man is being used, and it seems that whatever's controlling the energies outside of us has got its hands in all the cookie jars down here on Earth, and it wants to come down here and experience everything on the world stage that has got a lot of highlights to it. If you haven't seen my decode on the longest home run, clearly you can see that whatever created this reality decided to come down, step inside Joey, the guy who hit the home run, just to experience what it feels like to hit the home run. Now, is that a bad thing? It depends on your perspective and your observations. But clearly, folks, there's no other explanation for what I'm showing you. These codes are real. The things I'm showing you are real. They've been around a lot longer than each and every one of us have been around. And we have to use whatever we can use to try to figure this out. Not someone's opinion steeped in something that they were told or read in a book that's not even their own, that they've adopted as their own. Those ways are gone. They're total. They're history. We need to really come together and figure this out as a collective consciousness. And we will, folks. We will figure this out. So anyway, folks, that's all I got for today. Stay tuned for more videos. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, share the video. Of course, you can share it all you want. Give me your feedback. But, that's all I got for today. My name is Logan. This is Decode Your Reality, and I thank you so very much for watching.